Hey guys, this is DasGregor. I haven't done a chapter in about 3 weeks of a trek in the desert, and hot off the presses, I got the latest. I just finished it less than 2 minutes ago. So, since I know a few of you guys have been waiting to hear what happens in this next chapter, I decided I'd go ahead and write this, record this, although it is getting pretty late in the evening right now. But here goes. Chapter 3 of A Trek in the Desert. The Great Explorers. "Aw, stop your gawking. You turning sissy on me?" exclaimed Jim, as Tom stood staring at the new scenery that stood before him. It was the perfect picture painted on an artist's canvas. The rugged mountains loomed just a little further in the distance, and the foliage was unspoiled by the trampling of man. There was a large saguaro just to the side of the two explorers, and they were standing in a dry riverbed. It was evident by the thick cracks in the earth that this river had not seen water for some time. However, in the desert that's not an uncommon occurrence. "I'm not being a sissy. Can't I enjoy the scenery a bit? I've never been up here before," remarked Tom. "Well, come on. We're burning daylight, just standing here, and I want to make it back to the car before dark. I don't want to get lost up here." Jim started down the path of the old river, hoping that Tom was quickly following behind. As they walked, they enjoyed more of the sandwiches that Tom had made and conserved their water. They did not want to get stranded or lost with their water supply gone. They followed the riverbed, up-winding towards a pass in the mountains. It was quiet, with an occasional chirp of a bird and the noise of a crow every once in a while. Otherwise, the only noise that Tom and Jim heard was the brushing sounds their feet made on the dusty trail. They felt like old pioneers, explorers of a lost world. It was pristine and untouched, solemn and exciting at the same time. There wasn't much to say, so Tom just followed Jim as he continued up the path. Finally, Tom yelled at Jim, "Do you know where we are going? I don't want to get lost." "I don't know, but if we follow this old riverbed, we can always backtrack our steps." Jim smiled to himself. Tom always worried too much. "Well, I don't see the riverbed any longer. I think we're on a trail that forked off of it a while back. We've been twisting and winding up here. I'm not even sure where here is anymore," Tom said, a bit worried. Jim stopped and looked around. He hadn't really paid too much attention to the direction they were going, and the path seemed pretty straightforward. He looked about himself. A bit of apprehension fell into his gut. He really didn't know where they were, and Tom was right. They were no longer on the riverbed. It was a small walking path, or at least a cleared area from all of the cactus and shrubbery that surrounded them. "It's not a problem. We can just head back from where we came from. I'm sure we'll run back into the river." Jim tried to sound calm and reassuring. No need to get Tom riled up now. They both turned around and started back down the clearing. After about 10 minutes of walking, Tom and Jim came to a fork in the trail. Neither was the riverbed, and both headed downward. Neither of them had an idea of which trail to take. They had been twisting and turning and going upward the whole time. Knowing they needed to head down was all either of them knew, but both of these new trails went in that direction. Neither Tom nor Jim wanted to admit they were lost. Jim finally spoke up. "Let's rest and get a small drink. Then we can head on." "That sounds good." Tom took out their water containers and handed one to Jim. He was just as perplexed and nervous about what route to take. It was starting to get dark, and they both knew that if they did not find their way back to the car, they might be staying the night. It was not a thought that Tom wanted to ponder. After drinking half the bottle, Jim spoke up. "Let's head to the left. I think we'll find the dry riverbed that direction." Tom was in no mood to argue, so off they went. Another quarter-hour passed, and both realized that the path had circled back to the mountains, and they were most likely going the wrong way. By now, evening was settling upon the park, and it was getting harder to see. Tom pulled out his phone and looked at it. There were no bars. He wouldn't be calling for help any time soon. He shrugged at Jim. "I guess we should keep moving. If we get to the top, we may be able to see where we are and where we went wrong, and maybe I can get a signal." Jim agreed, and the two climbed on further. They tried to watch their steps as best they could, as it was getting harder and harder to see in front of them. Neither one had thought to bring a flashlight. Tom took his phone out again and turned on the flash. "Turn that off! You don't want the battery to go dead before we get a signal." Jim wanted the light as much as Tom, but he wanted rescued even more. They clambered onward, neither knowing if they would find a signal or if they were getting home that night. As they walked, they turned a corner. Tom cried out, and Jim saw him lose his balance. He tried to catch him, but it was too late. Tom was sliding down an incline, toppling head over foot. He came to a rest a few moments later. "Are you all right?" yelled Jim. He started managing the steep drop as he climbed down to Tom. It was amazing he hadn't fallen with Tom. When the path took a turn, it was just a drop to one side, a sharp precipice. Jim reached Tom just as he was trying to get up. "Ow! Ow! Ow!" Tom grunted in pain as he tried to lift his crumpled body off the floor of the small ravine. He was very lucky that it was not a huge drop. That could have been the end of him. Jim reached down and grabbed his arm. He tried to pull Tom up. It took a great deal of encouragement and pain, but he finally managed. The backpack had been torn, and the empty water bottles were on the ground. Tom's clothes looked worse for wear, and he had a few scratches except for the searing pain in his left ankle and his knee. Everything else appeared in place. No broken bones. Jim set Tom on a rock to rest. He picked up the backpack and tried his best to put everything back in it. It was badly torn, and nothing would stay put. Realizing that he could not carry the backpack and get Tom out of the ravine, he abandoned the backpack on the ground and directed his attention to Tom. "How is it?" he stammered. "I'll live. How are we going to get out of here?" Tom asked. Despite the darkness that had fallen, Jim saw that they could continue through the ravine. Maybe there was a slightly less steep incline further on where they could get themselves out. He took Tom by the arm and began the laborious task of trying to get to safety. All thoughts of a warm bed had fallen to pieces. Both Jim and Tom carried on until they could go not much further. The ravine had slowly widened, and they could see that they had come to a clearing. Jim helped Tom to a resting spot where he could lay sitting propped against a large rock. The sky was clear and the stars shone brightly. "We'll stop here for the night," Jim said to Tom. "I can't go on." He looked concerned at Tom, but what else could he do? He wasn't going to leave him by himself. Tom took his phone out. There was still no signal. He grimaced as he put it back in his pocket. He might as well get comfortable. They weren't going anywhere tonight. "The sky looks magnificent," Tom murmured as he struggled to stay awake. Being so far from the city and away from all the lights and pollution, the sky shone brilliant with all its planets and stars. Tom and Jim both sat and stared at the heavens. As they were gazing upward, they saw a star fall, and then another. The sky was ablaze with the spectacle. "I didn't know we were supposed to have a meteor storm," exclaimed Jim. "At least it's a great night to be lost in the desert." Just over the hill, a strange shadow crept towards the two unsuspecting men. Neither of them saw it coming, nor did they hear anything as they sat and watched the heavenly production. Slowly, the form came closer to them. Jim and Tom slept peacefully. The end of Chapter 3. Hopefully I'll be able to get to Chapter 4 much quicker than it took me to get Chapter 3 done. And as soon as we get there, we'll get her posted. I hope those that are reading, or at least listening, to this story, are enjoying it. And please look at some of my other stories and let me know if you like what you're hearing. Hopefully it's getting a little exciting. Anyway, good night, or good day, whatever you're having, have it. Enjoy it. This is DasGregor. Bye.